The great hall of Geron's royal court was filled with light, music, and laughter. Tall alien nobles with shining robes stood in circles, talking and drinking glowing liquids from crystal glasses. Guards in silver armor stood straight beside the massive doors. Holding long electric spears, at the center of the room sat Princess Virella on a high throne, made of blue crystal and metal vines. She was beautiful, proud, and sharp-tongued. She had never lost a debate, never been ignored, and never been challenged by anyone. Until today, the huge doors opened with a loud sound. Everyone turned. A human stepped inside. He was tall, but not in a powerful way. He walked with calm steps, as if the many eyes on him did not matter. His armor was old and rusty, full of dents and scratches. Some pieces looked like they were about to fall off. The room fell silent for a moment, then came the laughter. It started with a whisper, then grew louder. Some nobles covered their mouths. Others pointed at him. A voice said, "Is this a joke? Did someone send a clown from Earth?" Princess Virella smiled with sharp eyes. "Who allowed this piece of walking junk into my court?" she asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The court laughed again, louder this time. But the human did not speak. He kept walking slowly toward the throne. His boots made soft thuds on the golden floor. He stood still 10 steps away from the princess. Virella leaned forward, her voice playful but mocking. "Tell me, human, do you not feel shame wearing that thing?" She pointed at his rusty armor. "It looks like you fought 1,000 battles and lost every single one." The human still said nothing. His face was calm, eyes steady, lips closed. Now the room felt strange. The laughter slowly died. A quiet, thick silence filled the air. The princess frowned, confused by the sudden change. She was used to humans begging, joking, or flattering her, but this one stood like a rock. Unshaken, unbothered, his eyes didn't blink, didn't move away from hers. "What is your name, stranger?" she asked, her tone more serious now. The human finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "Kale," he said, "I came because you called for champions." Virella tilted her head. "You? A champion?" She laughed again, but it didn't have the same power as before. "Look at yourself," she said. "Your armor is falling apart, your sword is missing. Your boots don't match." The court chuckled nervously, watching Kale closely. He raised one arm and touched the buckle on his shoulder. With a soft click, the armor plate fell off and hit the floor with a dull sound. More pieces followed. Each piece dropped slowly, like falling leaves. Under the armor was not what they expected. Kale's skin was glowing, not brightly, but with a soft light. Strange marks ran across his arms and chest, symbols from the ancient Zeran language. The court gasped. An old priest in the corner dropped his cup. "That mark," the priest said, pointing with a trembling finger. "It belongs to the House of Flames, the royal bloodline. No human should have that," another noble said, his voice shaking. "Is this magic? Is he cursed?" Princess Virella stood from her throne. Her eyes were wide now, not playful but serious. She stepped down slowly, watching him like a hunter watches a wild animal. "Who are you?" she whispered. Kale didn't answer. He simply pulled out a small object from inside his chest plate. It was a glowing crystal shaped like a key, shining with royal energy, the same color as the queen's crown, the same light as the palace heartstone. The crystal floated for a moment in the air before landing softly in Kale's palm. Now the court was silent, fully silent. No one moved. No one laughed. No one dared to speak. Kale looked around the room slowly. "I came to stop something worse than war," he said calmly. "I wear this armor not to impress, but to remember." His voice was soft, but every word felt heavy. Princess Virella took another step back. Her fingers twitched, reaching for the hilt of her sword, but she didn't draw it. Something about him held her still. Kale raised his hand again, touching the last piece of armor on his chest, the one with a deep scratch and burned edges. He looked straight at her. "Shall I show you the rest?" he asked. The court leaned forward as one, breath held, hearts pounding. And in that moment, even the strongest warrior forgot how to laugh. A deep silence held the royal court of Geron. The laughter from before had vanished. No one dared to speak. No one blinked. Kyle stood tall, surrounded by nobles, guards, and ancient statues, but it felt like the whole room was frozen in time. Even the floating candles above flickered softly, like they were afraid. The last piece of his rusty armor still clung to his chest. Burned, broken, and old, it looked like it had seen 1,000 battles. Maybe it had. Princess Varela narrowed her eyes. Her sharp voice was now softer. "Show us, human," she said slowly. "Let the court see what lies beneath your scars." Kale's fingers touched the final buckle. There was a small click and the last plate of armor fell to the floor. It landed without a sound, but its silence was louder than thunder. Gasps filled the air again. His chest was bare now, but it did not look like the body of a normal human. Soft golden light ran along his skin in lines, like rivers of energy drawn by ancient hands. But it was the symbols that truly stopped the hearts in the room. They were Zeronian battle glyphs, each one rare, powerful, and sacred, marks only granted to royal champions generations ago, and some were forbidden. The high priest of Jaren stumbled forward, eyes wide. "No," he whispered, voice shaking. That mark belongs only to the first flame, the founder of our bloodline." He dropped to his knees. Tears welling in his eyes, others in the court began whispering among themselves. How can a human have that? It must be fake. Or, is he one of them? Kale did not move. He looked around, then held up the glowing crystal key again. It floated just above his hand, spinning slowly. Then, a symbol on the wall behind the throne lit up. Matching the glow of the key, everyone turned to look. The wall had been there for hundreds of years, cold and silent. Now it pulsed with warmth. Princess Virella stepped forward, face pale. "Why do you have these marks?" she asked, her voice tight. "What are you?" Kale's voice was low and calm. "I am the result of a broken promise," he said. "Long ago, your people swore to protect Earth, just as Earth helped you win the War of Sun. But that promise was forgotten." He took a breath. Eyes locked on hers. "My ancestor was left behind, a royal champion who married a human woman. They erased him from history. But the blood did not forget." A murmur ran through the crowd. One of the elders, Lady Myra, clutched her chest. "There were rumors," she said. "A ship that never returned? A champion who vanished in the stars." Kale nodded once. "My name is Kale Ren," he said. "Ren, the lost son of fire." Gasps again. This time louder. That name had not been spoken in generations. It was a name buried in sealed scrolls and secret tombs. The guards looked to Princess Virella. Unsure of what to do, half wanted to bow, half wanted to draw swords. The princess's eyes burned with confusion, fear, and something else, wonder. Still, she lifted her chin, trying to hold power in her voice. "If this is true, then why come now?" she demanded. "Why wear broken armor? Why not come as a prince?" Kale smiled slightly. "Because the court only listens to those who survive fire," he said. "And I needed to walk through flames before I stood here." The air in the hall grew heavy. It was no longer a joke, no longer a show. It was history rewriting itself in real time. Kale walked forward and placed the crystal key into a small circular hole at the base of the throne. The crystal vanished into the stone, the floor shook softly, and from behind the throne a hidden door opened. Warm golden light spilled out from inside. No one had known that passage existed. "Not even Virella inside," Kale said gently. "Is the truth you were never told?" Princess Virella hesitated. The guards took a step forward to protect her, but she raised her hand and stopped them. Without a word, she stepped into the hidden chamber. Kyle followed her. The doors began to close, leaving the shocked court behind. As the light faded, one young noble whispered, "What if he's telling the truth?" Another replied in a trembling voice, "Then everything we believe is a lie." And the court stood silent once more, waiting for what would come out of the hidden door, and wondering what secrets had been buried beneath the rust. The hidden door closed behind them with a deep hum. Kale and Princess Virella stood inside a narrow golden tunnel. The air was warm, glowing softly with ancient energy that seemed alive. Each wall was covered in strange writing, Zeronian script so old that even Virella could not read it. The light of the crystal key danced across the walls. Symbols came alive as Kale walked past them. His glowing marks on his skin began to shine brighter, matching the color of the walls. It was as if the tunnel itself recognized him. Virella followed slowly, her sharp confidence replaced by quiet curiosity. She glanced at Kale's back. Noticing scars that looked too deep to belong to one lifetime, finally she spoke, her voice echoing softly. "Tell me, Kale Ren, what do you really want from us?" Kale stopped, placing his hand on a glowing symbol. "I want the truth to live again," he said quietly. "For centuries, your people believed humans were weak, lower, unworthy. But we fought beside your ancestors in the War of Suns. He turned, his eyes reflecting the golden light. You think my armor is old, he said, but it was built before your great-grandfather was born. Each scar on it is from a battle your history books erased. Virella frowned, unsure whether to believe him. Her mind fought between pride and doubt. How can humans fight beside Gerans? She asked. Your bodies are soft, your bones break easily. Gale smiled faintly, but there was sadness in his eyes. Maybe, he said, but hearts can be harder than metal. He walked toward a round chamber that opened before them. Inside was a large circular pool of liquid light, calm and silent. This is the memory pool, Virella whispered, shocked. No one has entered here for over 500 years. She stared at Kale. How did you know where to find it? Kale didn't answer. He stepped closer and touched the surface of the glowing pool. Ripples spread out and images began to form. Scenes of old battles filled the golden mist. Massive ships flew through space, firing beams that shook the stars. Geran warriors fought beside human soldiers. Humans in shining silver suits, standing shoulder to shoulder with aliens. And in the center of it all, a warrior with the same glowing marks as Kale. His face almost the same, only older, Virella gasped. That's you, she whispered. Kale shook his head. No, he said softly. That's my ancestor, Prince Ren, the last flame of your first king's blood. The pool showed him standing beside a human woman. They held hands as explosions filled the sky. Then came betrayal, ships turning against each other. Geran generals giving secret orders and the voice of a king saying, End the bloodline. No more humans among us. The pool went dark. Only silence remained. Virella stepped back, her face pale. Her voice trembled. Our ancestors betrayed your family? Kale nodded slowly. They erased the truth, destroyed every record and left him stranded on Earth. His blood mixed with ours, until only I remained to carry the mark. Virella's throat tightened. She felt something heavy pressing on her chest, guilt for crimes she did not commit, but also fear. Because if Kale was right, it meant her entire kingdom was built on lies. She turned toward him, voice shaking. What do you want me to do? You can't change history. Kale's gaze was steady. I don't want revenge, he said. I want to stop the war that's coming. War, she repeated, eyes narrowing. What war? Kale looked up at the glowing ceiling. The same one my ancestor tried to prevent, he said. The same darkness that made your generals betray him. It's returning. The Synthons. The word made Virella's eyes widen. They're a myth, she said quickly. Machines that feed on energy and memories. Stories told to frighten children. Kale shook his head. They're real, he said quietly, and they are already moving across the outer colonies. Virella tried to speak, but her words died in her throat. Kale stepped closer. When they come, they won't care if you're a princess or a farmer, he said. They don't take prisoners, they take minds. The room flickered, the walls humming as if reacting to his words. Virella took a deep breath, her voice softened. You want us to believe a human can save Zarin? Kyle looked at her with calm eyes. I don't want to save Zarin, he said. I want to save everyone. The light around the pool suddenly changed, showing a final vision, a future city burning, Zarin ships falling from the sky, and a shadow spreading through the stars. Virella stepped back, trembling. What is that? She whispered. Kale's voice dropped low. That, he said, is what happens if we don't stand together again. He turned toward her. You laughed at my armor, he said gently. But it carries more history than any crown. I wear it so no one forgets what pride and lies once destroyed. Virella looked at him in silence. The glow of the pool reflected in her eyes. For the first time, she didn't see a human soldier. She saw something else, someone older, deeper, heavier with time. She took a slow step forward. If what you say is true, she said quietly, then our court must hear it. Kale looked toward the door. They won't believe me, he said. They'll call it treason. Virella smiled slightly. Then let them, she said. Let's see who still dares to laugh. And as they walked back toward the court, the ancient light dimmed behind them. The forgotten truth had awakened again, and with it, the blood of old wars began to stir once more. The great hall filled again with sound as Kale and Princess Virella returned. The hidden door closed and the nobles leaned forward like birds waiting for a storm. Many faces held fear, some held anger, and others kept their smiles like masks. At the center stood Lord Herrick, the captain of the royal guard, his armor bright and clean. He had been the first to step forward at the sound of Cale's boots, sword raised and eyes hard. "Explain yourself," Herrick barked, voice like a broken bell. "You come into my court with lies and rusty plates and expect us to bow?" His sword flashed in the light as he stepped closer, every guard behind him ready to strike. Cale stood still, calm as a stone by the sea, his own broken blade hanging at his side. The sword looked small and worn, but his fingers wrapped it like it belonged to him. Virella watched from the steps of the throne, her heart beating fast. She had felt doubt, but she had also felt truth in the glow of the memory pool. Now she felt the weight of choice. If Cale truly was a threat, she could order him killed if he told the truth. Killing him could bring doom to them all. Herrick laughed, a sharp sound that cut the air. "You think a human can teach us courage?" He sneered. "We are warriors of Zarin. Born for battle, raised for honor," he stepped in, pointing his blade at Cale in a clear challenge. "Prove your claim, human, or fall at my feet." Cale bowed slightly, not in fear but in respect. "I will not beg to prove blood," he said softly. "If you demand a duel, then fight with honor." Herrick smiled like a wolf and moved, the blade singing as it left his side. The first strike came fast, a heavy blow meant to end the fight in one move. Cale blocked with the broken blade, metal clanging with a sound that made the crowd flinch. He moved in a way that was strange but beautiful, his step small, precise like a dance learned years ago. Each move seemed to remember a style long buried in the stones of the palace. Herrick struck again and again, but Cale dodged, parried, and sometimes took the hit and kept going. His old armor rubbed and clattered, but his body did not show pain, only focus. A hush spread across the hall, the kind that falls when something impossible happens. Herrick lunged with a powerful strike meant to break bones. Cale twisted, the broken blade sliding along the guard's weapon, and in one smooth motion he used the momentum to throw Herrick off balance. Herrick stumbled and fell to his knee, breath blowing like wind from a torn sail. The court gasped, then whispered, then shouted. A storm of sounds. Herrick pushed up and tried to stand proud, but his face had lost color. He expected applause for his strength, but instead he found his sword pointed at his throat by the broken blade. All eyes turned to Cale, who stood still like the calm before a wave. The royal sword at Herrick's side began to glow, its light finding Cale's hand like it had chosen him long ago. A cold shiver ran through the guards. Then silence cut like ice. The blade glowed brighter, and the light wrapped around Cale's fingers as if greeting a friend. No one had seen the royal sword move on its own in 100 years. The old king's face in the crowd had gone white, his hands trembling at his robes. Virella stepped down closer now, her breath shallow, her eyes locked on the glowing metal. "This is impossible," one noble whispered. Voice breaking, the high priest crossed himself, tears shining in his eyes as ancient words left his lips. Herrick let out a hoarse laugh, but it sounded empty, like a man with no ground under his feet. He did not move to pull his sword, not with Cale holding his blade so near. Cale's voice was quiet but strong, and it cut through the hall. "I do not want a throne," he said. "I want the truth to stand." He lifted the broken blade a little, not to kill, but to show he could end the fight. Herrick closed his eyes, then slowly lowered his hand, the guard's pride crumbling like old stone. A murmur rose, then a shout, then silence again. As the royal sword's glow pulsed softly, it seemed to touch the chest of the great hall and move through the people like wind through leaves. Virella felt something warm and terrible in her heart, something like a memory that was both hers and not hers. She remembered stories told as a child, then hidden under dust, stories that now burned with new light. The king stood, his old voice thin but steady. "Kneel," he said to Herrick and to everyone who still believed in old pride. Herrick dropped to one knee, head bowed, his armor clinking quietly. The court shifted like a sleepwalker waking. Unsure what was real, Cale lowered the blade and stepped back, the royal sword's glow fading like a tide going out. He kept his eyes on Virella, who stood still and tall, more thoughtful than angry now. "Let the court speak," Cale whispered. "Let the truth be heard. Let the past be changed if it must." And the court began to speak, voices loud and discordant, a storm of shame, fear, and hope. Outside the palace, clouds moved fast across the sun, the sky like an angry sea. Inside, an old promise had been broken and now might be mended. But mending would not be easy. and many hearts would not forgive. The duel had shown more than skill. It had shown a door opening that could not be closed. The royal court of Jaren was no longer peaceful. It was broken like a mirror hit with a hammer. Kale stood at the center, holding the glowing royal sword, while Lord Harrick knelt with shame in his eyes. Princess Virella stood beside the throne, not speaking, not moving, just watching every face in the hall. The nobles were no longer united. Some whispered with fear, others shouted in anger. "He's a fraud," yelled Lord Myson, his thick neck red with rage. "No outsider should touch that sword." "The sword chose him," answered Lady Myra, one of the oldest nobles, her voice firm. "Are you saying the sword is wrong?" Voices clashed like blades. One group began to bow slightly toward Kyle. Another raised their weapons, pointing them at him. The guards didn't know whom to obey. They looked to the princess, but she still said nothing. Kale didn't move either. He stood quiet, letting the royal sword float above his palm, glowing gently like a flame. "This is not what I wanted," he said in a calm voice. "I did not come here to divide your people. I came here to warn them." Lord Myson stepped forward, drawing his curved blade. "You came here to pretend," he growled. "You speak of blood, but we speak of proof. Bloodlines are tested, not trusted." He looked to the crowd, lifting his sword in the air. "Who stands with this outsider?" he shouted. "Who dares call him one of us?" A moment of silence followed. Then slowly Lady Myra raised her hand. "I do," she said. "My mother told me stories of the forgotten flame, stories the court buried. I never believed them, but now I see him standing here with the sword of the first king." Others joined her, one by one, knights, scholars, even 2 generals, but just as many refused. "This is not proof," barked General Vorn. "He could be using ancient tech to fool us all." A tall woman stepped out of the shadows, dressed in a dark violet robe. Her eyes were silver and cold, her voice like ice. "He could be a weapon sent by Earth," she said. "Let's not forget. The humans once begged for our protection, and now one walks in claiming royalty." Kale looked at her calmly. "I do not claim to rule you," he said. "I ask you to prepare for the real enemy." "The Synthons are coming." Laughter burst out from several nobles. "Synthons are bedtime stories," Lord Myson said with a laugh. "You expect us to believe this tale of machine monsters from a rusty stranger?" Kale looked to Virella, hoping she would speak. She didn't. Not yet. She stared at the sword floating in the air. Eyes lost in thought, Kale took a breath. "If you do not believe me, then I will leave," he said. "I will return to Earth and prepare my people alone. But when they come, when your cities fall and your children scream, remember who warned you." That silence returned, sharp and deep. Even those who doubted him felt something heavy in the room. The old king, now seated in a chair at the edge of the hall, spoke with a voice cracked by age. "We once had an alliance with Earth," he said. "My father broke it. Out of fear. Perhaps the flame returns not to rule, but to remind us." Some nobles bowed their heads in shame. Others turned away, arms crossed and minds closed. Finally, Virella stepped forward, her boots clicking on the marble floor. She looked at Kale, her face unreadable. Then she turned to her people. "I laughed at his armor," she said, "but I will not laugh at this sword. It chose him, and I saw the past with my own eyes." She raised her voice now, strong and royal. "If we are afraid of truth, then we are not worthy of the crown we serve. If we ignore warnings because of pride, we will fall." Some clapped, others whispered. A few stormed out of the hall. The court was breaking apart, but the truth had been spoken. Kyle lowered the sword, letting it rest in both hands. He walked slowly toward the throne and knelt, placing it gently at Virella's feet. "I don't want your throne," he said. "I want your trust. And your help." She looked down at the sword, then back at him. "You won't get both today," she said softly. "But you'll get one of them." Then she turned to the guards. "Escort him to the sky chamber," she ordered. "He is not a prisoner, but he is not free to leave yet either." Kale nodded, understanding as the guards led him away. Half the court watched with curiosity, the other half with silent rage. But no one laughed anymore, not after the sword had chosen. And far beyond the city walls, in the darkness of space, something ancient moved, a machine that did not laugh, a machine that only consumed. The sky chamber was quiet. High above the royal palace, its round glass walls showed the stars beyond. And the whole city of Jaren below. Kale stood at the center alone, watching the lights blink across the distant mountains. He felt the silence in his bones, but his mind was not at peace. Everything in him said danger was near, not in days, not in weeks, but now. He didn't know how he knew, only that he did, and he had learned long ago to trust that feeling. A soft sound broke the quiet. The door opened and Princess Virella entered, her royal cloak trailing behind her. She said nothing at first, only walked to the edge of the glass and looked out. Her face was unreadable, caught between pride and worry. "You caused a storm in the court," she finally said. "Half want to follow you. The other half want your head." Kale nodded slowly. "I didn't come to make friends," he said. "I came to stop a war." Virella turned toward him, her voice sharper now. "You keep saying war synthons, machines that feed on memories. But where are they? Why should we believe in ghosts and shadows?" Kale stepped closer to her. "Because the shadow is already inside," he said. "In this palace." She blinked. "What do you mean?" Kale reached into a hidden pocket in his armor and pulled out a small round device. He placed it on the table in the center of the chamber. It lit up with a soft blue glow, then showed a hologram, lines, shapes, energy paths. "This is a scanner," he explained. "It detects energy signals used only by synthons. I activated it during the duel, and it found something." The map showed a red, blinking dot. Not outside the palace, not near the borders, but beneath the throne room. Virella's face turned pale. "That's the vault level," she whispered. "Only High Council members have access there." Kyle looked straight at her. "Then the threat isn't coming from the sky," he said. "It's coming from someone close to you." Virella clenched her fists. "That's not possible," she said, but her voice was unsure. "Everyone on the High Council is loyal." Kale's voice was steady. "Even loyalty can be bought," he said, "or replaced." Before Virella could answer, the room shook, just slightly. Like the heartbeat of a giant, the lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air. Kale turned his head toward the hallway, eyes narrowing. "They're here," he said. The door flew open with a sharp hiss. A guard stumbled in, his armor smoking. His face cut, he gasped, "Your Highness, there's an explosion in the lower levels." "Security feeds have gone dark." Virella stepped forward, voice firm. "Who attacked?" she asked. "Rebels." The guard shook his head, trembling. "No rebels," he said. "Machines." Kale rushed past them, grabbing his broken sword. Virella followed without hesitation. They moved through golden halls now filled with panic, servants running, alarms echoing, and smoke rising through vents as they reached the lower levels. The air became cold, unnaturally cold. Lights dimmed as if something was feeding on them. Kyle moved carefully, listening for sounds beyond the smoke. Then they saw it. A figure, tall, thin, and not alive. Its body was made of black metal, its face smooth and glowing with red lines. It did not walk. It floated just above the floor. Silent and deadly, one of the guards fired a plasma shot. The beam hit the machine, but it didn't stop. It absorbed the energy and then moved faster, slamming the guard into the wall like he was paper. Kale stepped forward. "Get back," he told Virella. He faced the machine and raised his sword, broken but glowing now. The blade hummed as it met the machine's arm. Sparks flying like fireflies, the machine hissed, voice crackling. "Target identified," it said in a cold metal tone. Kyle ran, memory line, royal flame. Kyle's eyes widened. "It knows me," he whispered. Virella fired her pulse pistol. Aiming at the machine's eye, it turned, hissed again, then moved back into the smoke. Kale grabbed Virella's arm and pulled her behind a pillar. "It's not alone," he said. "There will be more." "Who sent it?" she asked, her voice shaking. Kale looked toward the vault door, glowing faint red. "Someone who opened that vault for them," he said. "Someone on your council is working with the synthons." Virella stared at the vault, horror growing in her eyes. Everything she believed in, her court, her history, her power, was being torn apart. And now it wasn't just about bloodlines. It was about survival. Kale stood up, sword in hand. "We need to lock down the palace," he said. "We need to find the traitor before the machines reach the royal core." Virella looked at him, then nodded. Her voice was no longer proud, no longer playful. It was sharp, clear, and royal. "Then let's finish this," she said, together, as they turned toward the vault. The lights behind them went out and the true war began in the dark. The royal palace of Jaren burned with red warning lights. Alarms screamed in every hallway. Smoke poured from the lower levels. And the guards of the high court were no longer fighting each other. They were fighting to survive. Kale and Princess Virella stood before the vault doors. Behind those thick metal walls lay the heart of Zaren's power. The royal core. If the Synthons reached it, they would control everything, not just the palace, but the minds of every Zeronian citizen connected to the crystal grid. Kale tightened his grip on the broken sword. It now pulsed with energy, glowing brighter than ever. The blade may have been damaged, but the light within was alive. It answered to his blood, and it would not let him fall quietly. Virella keyed in her royal code. The vault doors opened with a hiss inside. Blue light shimmered from the floating core, but something was wrong. A figure stood in front of it, his back turned. He wore high council robes, robes of trust. Robes of power, Virella gasped. Counselor Rennick? He turned, and his eyes were no longer human. They glowed red, his skin pale and cracked like old metal. Wires ran along his arms, hidden under flesh. A Synthon agent, implanted, corrupted, and disguised. You, Kale whispered, stepping forward. You were the traitor all along, Rennick smiled. A cold, lifeless thing. You humans never learn, he said, voice now part machine. Zaren's future is not in old stories or royal blood. It's in unity. One mind, one will. He reached for the royal core, Virella shouted. Stop him! Kyle moved like a storm, his feet slamming the floor. The broken sword clashed with metal arms, sparks dancing across the walls. Rennick struck back with terrifying speed. Blades folding out from under his sleeves, Kale blocked one, dodged another, then rolled to protect Virella as more machines entered the room. 3 more Synthons, dark, silent, deadly. Their feet didn't touch the ground. They hovered with a hum that made the air vibrate. Virella fired her weapon, blasting one straight through its eye. But the other 2 kept coming. Kale fought with everything he had. His sword was old, his body wounded, but he moved like fire. He remembered his ancestors' memories, flashes of battles from another time. He used them now, not just to fight, but to survive. Rennick grabbed Virella by the arm. Join us, he hissed. Your mind is worth more than this planet, she struggled, spit in his face and kicked him away. Zaren will never kneel to metal, she shouted. Kale pushed forward, slashing the wires on Rennick's arm. The machine man screamed, a mix of pain and static. He tried to reach the core again, but Kale stood in his path. You wanted unity, Kale growled. You'll die alone. With a final swing, Kale drove the sword deep into Rennick's chest. The glow from the blade spread through his body. The machine parts sparked and cracked. Rennick collapsed, twitching before going still forever. The remaining Synthons screeched and began to overload. One tried to reach the core, but Virella activated the emergency shield. A wall of light trapped them just in time. Kyle and Virella watched as the machines exploded inside the barrier. The light faded and silence fell over the room. Virella dropped her weapon and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Kale sat beside her, blood dripping from his arm. He laughed quietly. You said they were bedtime stories, he said. She smiled tiredly. Next time, I'll believe you sooner, later that night. The court gathered again. This time, no one laughed, no one mocked. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. They had watched a human bleed to protect a kingdom that was not his. Kale stood in front of the throne. Bandaged and quiet, he did not ask for a crown. He did not speak about his victory. He simply placed the glowing royal sword on the steps of the throne. This belongs to Zaren, he said, to its people. Virella stepped beside him. She raised her voice before the court. You once laughed at him, she said. So did I. But now I say this, if he is not one of us, then none of us deserve to be called Zaren. She took the sword, then bowed her head to Kale, to his past, to the flame he carried when no one else believed. One by one the nobles followed, kneeling. Not because they were forced, but because truth had lit a fire that burned away their pride. The court fell silent, not in fear, but in respect. Above them, the stars shone through the sky chamber's glass ceiling, and far beyond the system, the Synthons drifted in the dark, defeated for now. But the legend of the man in rusty armor had only begun, and Zaren would never forget the day the sword chose silence over pride, and a human over fear.